From the California State Senate, this is Senate Spotlight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this segment of Senate Spotlight, where we discuss legislative priorities, policy, and other related issues with members of the California State Senate. From the state capitol here in Sacramento, I'm Brian Green, and we're proud to welcome back our honorable senator from Santa Barbara, Ventura Counties, Hannah-Beth Jackson.
Thank you.
Chair
Nice
of the Judiciary Committee. Good to have you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And I say welcome back kind of in a strange way because you're coming back here to this new session of the legislature at a very unusual, surreal time for California and some of the values and priorities of the state as we prepare for transitions on a national level. It's kind of like California is this alternate universe, you would say, even compared to the rest of the country. What's your perspective coming back here now with this new session?
Well, of course, the uncertainty of the national situation is, I think, one that is causing great concern for a lot of us. California voted so overwhelmingly against the incoming president, as did, by the way, Oregon and Washington. So the West Coast was quite clear in its priorities, and the East Coast. So we are not alone, but it sure feels that we are somewhat isolated, and the progressive values, that sense of inclusion that makes California such an exciting, vibrant place, which I think has helped stimulate our economic success, really is being threatened by the jargon, by the hostility, by the, I would have to say, ignorance and misrepresentations that are being made on a national level that are guiding a lot of people and sadly look like they're going to be guiding federal policy. And so it is a time of great uncertainty and concern. And of course, many of us here are hunkering down. We want to protect the values of California. We want to protect what makes this a great state, the joy of living in California, as well as the challenges. But it is a unique culture, and it's one that we want to preserve and protect.
Well, that uncertainty that we're talking about here, we've really seen it particularly this year, and we likely will feel the impact of it this year in the new state budget.
Right.
As we speak, Governor Brown releasing his 2017 state budget, where he's speaking of continuing fiscal prudence and kind of a wait-and-see attitude with the anticipation of a budget deficit, I guess, of $1 billion and change, something like that, and prompted, of course, in particular by the fact that we don't know what kind of impact federally we're going to see here in California with the federal budget being so much part of our budget, federal funding.
Sure.
So just give me some of your reaction to that, particularly with in regards to the Affordable Care Act and the fact that they're pulling that apart like a sticky bun as we speak. What's your reaction to that and that wait-and-see attitude?
Sure.
Are we kind of in for the fight of our life here with that?
Well, first of all, the budget that the governor proposed is a typical Jerry Brown, very conservative, cautious budget. It's reflective of who Jerry Brown is himself. He's penny pinching, and this is good for the taxpayer to really feel confident that money is not going to be spent frivolously. And I share that strong value that we spend our money wisely. I think as time goes on and we see whether or not our revenues are down, it's about $1 billion, $1.5 billion, although there are others who say no, that those numbers are way too, underestimating the effectiveness and success of the economy. But there is no question that what is going on a federal level with the Affordable Care Act, by the way, that is also Obamacare. Mm-hmm. So people who think they're different things, they are not. They are one and the same thing.
Yes.
But we stand if Mr. Trump is able, along with the Republican Congress, to pursue their threat and be successful in that. We stand to lose as a state anywhere up to $16 billion, maybe $20 billion a year, and we cannot backfill that.
And that's millions of Californians who could be medically indigent.
Absolutely, and that is a concern, and I think that that's really where we need to be focusing, is there are millions of people now who have the hope and access to quality health care, to health care, period, that did not before the Affordable Care Act was passed. And I think what we have to do is look at the fact that people are affected. The lives of human beings, children, adults, our parents, our grandparents, are going to be affected by a reckless effort to undermine what has been a successful program and which California has embraced with great enthusiasm and great success. So if the plug gets pulled on this, the plug gets pulled on Medicare and Medicaid funding, much of which is federally financed, along with other programs, California is going to find itself in some serious fiscal problems.
Moving forward here to 2017, you are continuing your long-standing work towards equity and equality here in California, rights of the individual, of society, economically, and building family-friendly workplaces.
Yes.
And kind of an odd transition here, but I mean, moving forward, you're still doing your part to protect what's important and sacred here in California. You're introducing 2 new measures, ensuring Californians who work for small businesses, for example, can take a leave, family leave, without worrying about whether or not they have a job to come back to. And I know it's not a new notion, but you're reintroducing it this year. Tell us about SB 63.
Well, you know, one of the things that we are seeing in today's world, in the modern world, about 50% of all women are in the workforce today. That's half of the women in our society, in our state, are out there working. And yet we also want to have robust, healthy, secure families. Well, we need to have greater balance. We have to recognize, employers have to recognize that people need to work and need to have their families. And we need families to be able to do that balancing. So SB 63 is a measure that I brought last year. Was able to get to the governor. The governor unfortunately vetoed it. I'm hoping to work very closely and early on with the governor on his concerns. But it's a bill that is going to provide new parents, mothers and fathers, with up to 12 weeks of job-protected leave on the birth of a newborn so that they can bond with that child and care for their newborns. In businesses where we have between 20 and 49 employees, because once you get to 50, that right to have 12 weeks of job-protected but unpaid leave exists. And I think it's really important for small businesses to recognize we're talking about 20 to 49, so not your mom and pop of 1 or 2 employees, but 20 to 49 employees, to be able to assure their employees that when they come back from 12 weeks of unpaid leave, so the employer is not having to pay any of that money to the employee, that salary is not being paid by the employer, but the employee, by virtue of a deduction that's taken out of each of our paychecks, goes into a sequestered account so that if we need to take time off, we can access up to 70%, depending upon your job situation, up to 70% of your weekly salary for a period of time. That's already the law. But what isn't the law is protecting people who want to access their money to be assured when they come back to work that the job is still there for them. I want to be able to do that. I know it's going to affect close to 3.7 million Californians will have this opportunity. They'll bond with their children. All the research shows that it's not only good for the newborn, as one can simply imagine, but also for new moms, reduces the amount of postpartum depression, and helps create a strong bond with the dad.
And that's the important thing is it's not a perk. It's not like access to the office gym. It's a necessity.
Well,
it's
and
important.
if you remember being a parent, or if you are a new parent,
yes.
this is a hard job. This is not just staying home and reading Gothic novels and eating bonbons. This is
only,
hard
right?
work. If
Yes.
only, babies are acclimating to the world. They don't sleep too well. You don't sleep too well if you're trying to nurse your children. This is hard work, and we need to recognize and respect that and honor that as a society.
The governor vetoed the bill last year, as you said, because he was concerned about the effect on small businesses, which we've talked about. The Chamber of Commerce came out, called it a job killer bill. But in fact, the small businesses have come back and said, actually, we like this. We need this. It can be cost effective for us.
Well, it's not only cost effective, but studies have shown that you retain employees at a higher rate. So you don't have to retrain people. That's a huge expense. People are more loyal. Their work is done more efficiently and productively. So it is a win-win. It's just we have to change a mindset. And hopefully this year, good things are worth fighting for over a period of time. When I did my equal pay bill, it only took 35 years. So my hope is that this will move a little faster than that. But we really need to have that discussion. We need to bring employers in, certainly. But when they recognize that this is a win-win for them, hopefully we'll see it more and more, and we'll be able to get the bill passed.
Now you have SB 62 that ensures our family leave laws reflect the diversity of California's families. That kind of digs more into the weeds or the overall perception of what is a family. It's not just mom and dad and the kids. It
Absolutely.
can be grandparents. It could be stepchildren. It could be brothers, sisters. So.
And in fact, in California, we are the second largest multi-generational family unit in the country. So we do have more grandparents living with grandchildren or children taking care of their aging parents. We're an aging population in California now. We have a negative birth rate. And so the aging population is increasing. We don't have any resources or nearly enough resources or infrastructure. So families are going to be caring for their seniors. And we have a lot of grandparents caring for grandchildren. And yet they don't have the protections if they need to take leave to care for those children or parents during the height of an illness or a particular family need.
You had a lot of legislative successes in 2016. We'll do a quick lightning round of a few of them. We'd be here for an hour, which I'd love to be, with all of them. But let's take a couple of them, which I think are very important. First, SB 1435, requiring the elementary and middle school health curriculums to include the learning about communication skills and treating each other with kindness and respect. And it sounds a little bit quaint, you know, when you look at it. It's like, well, everything I need to know I should have learned in kindergarten, but they're not learning it.
Well,
so it's important that they focus on that,
You
right?
know, this is sort of the final step of a three-pronged set of bills. The first one was what is known as the Yes Means Yes bill, focusing on colleges and the amount of the absolute epidemic of sexual assault on campus, requiring that college students learn about more appropriate behavior. But in doing that bill, we learned that if you start at the college level, you're too late. So we brought it down to the high school level. Senator De Leon and I jointly authored these bills. And then this past year, I brought the bill down because where it really needs to start is right at the basics. And frankly, given the rhetoric and the behavior that we're seeing being modeled on a national level, it is really important that we start teaching children about respectful relationships, about tolerance. The cyberbullying is a serious problem that we want to address in a curriculum where children understand it's nicer and kinder. A nicer, kinder world will make a better world for everybody.
You have SB 1375 ensuring that students at schools are aware of their rights and responsibilities under Title IX and requiring them to comply with all of the rules on outreach, on communication, on awareness of what this federal law means to students and teachers and the schools.
Right. The Title IX is a 40-year-old federal law that requires equality, gender equality in our schools, whether it's in sports or whether it's in our curriculums. And what has been amazing is that many of our schools today don't even know what Title IX is. And it's a critical component. It's legislation I'm going to continue working on, both to create awareness and to assure compliance with these kinds of laws, to make sure that boys and girls are treated equally and fairly in school situations. It also is legislation that addresses sexual violence and harassment on our school campuses. We really need to improve those relationships to make this a better world.
SB 1180, this was the law that will help disabled veterans who are transitioning from military service to civilian life, integrate them into the public schools as teachers, as administrators, that perspective that they have in life that's so valuable to students.
Well, you know, we have sent a lot of our young men and women to battle, and they have come back with challenges related to that service. And it's our responsibility, I believe, to give them an opportunity to re-enter society, to become healthy, functioning people. And a lot of this requires that they be given an opportunity to get that treatment. So this is sort of a continuation of legislation I did, that if you are a returning veteran and you are entering a position in state service, a job with the state, that you are given essentially an advance on sick days so that you can continue if you're in therapy, if you're physical therapy, any kind of counseling or what have you, that you don't have to decide between your job or losing a day's pay in order to continue and complete that therapy. I want to make sure that all of our returning vets are healthy, secure, happy, and functioning people. That's the least that we owe them.
Let's step back even a year back to some really groundbreaking legislation that you authored, that the governor signed, the Fair Pay Act, right. Barring California employers from paying workers of one gender more than workers of another for substantially similar legislation. Again, groundbreaking, earth-shaking nationally. As the dust has settled, if you will, over the last year or so, what's been the reaction? There was concern about legal redress and employers being caught up in that. How's that been? What has it empowered more workers here in California?
Well, it's empowered empowered workers, and it's also empowered employers. Very interestingly, we are following up on this to make sure it's an educational process as well as anything else. So we've been working with the state and local chambers. We've been working with some of the larger companies that have sort of been in the lead on this. It's really not that difficult to take a look and evaluate the pay that you are giving to workers, and to make sure this is a law that says that people have to be paid equally for work that is substantially similar, and that you cannot differentiate on pay for any gender-based reason. There has to be a legitimate non-gender reason. So, for example, you have more experience, you have greater education, greater productivity in the workforce. There are things that can be done, but the burden, and this is, I think, what's critical, is on the employer to demonstrate that this is not gender-related. And the other element to this bill that I think is so critical is that it prohibits retaliation by an employer against an employee who asks what their colleagues are being paid, and prohibits discrimination or retaliation against an employee who shares that information with you. You can't contest what you don't know. And so what we're finding is there are a lot of companies that want to comply, and we're working with them, we're monitoring, we're trying to provide the kinds of resources so that companies can make those evaluations and pay people fairly on the basis of the work they do and not on the basis of gender.
Just as a final thought here before we leave, going back to what we were discussing at the outset, you're chair of the Judiciary Committee. You have had a long and distinguished career dealing with equal access, with gender equality, with justice, privacy, environment. Looking at what is happening in this country right now, all of these issues that were priorities seem to just have disappeared in terms of their priority, at least at a federal level. Give us your take on this from your perspective here in California and all of the work that you have done.
Well, you know, we need to persist and resist. And I think that the message has been sent to Washington, the tone has been set that we are not going to sit back and let the Congress and the incoming president undermine and eviscerate our environmental protections, our consumer protections, our civil rights, our human rights. California has fought very hard to welcome everyone to try to preserve the planet when it comes to global climate change. We know there's climate change. We're not willing to sit back and let this misinformation and just outright lies impact the policies that we have pursued to protect our people and our planet.
Is there a blessing, if you will, if you'll follow my logic, in the fact that this now has come up and seeing that this progress is not victory, it is just progress, and that we need to be vigilant?
I'm looking for victories in this. I think the fact is we are going to be playing defense, but we're going to be playing defense very hard, very strong, and unequivocally. I'd rather see us moving forward to protect the planet rather than just protecting California laws. But, you know, we're going to keep fighting. We're going to protect the things that are important to us as Californians, and hopefully our efforts will find some home in other parts of the country, if not in Congress.
Thanks for your fighting and your protection. Appreciate it.
My
Good to
pleasure.
see you again.
Thank you.
Hannah Beth Jackson, our state senator from Santa Barbara and Ventura Counties, also the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And that is it for this edition of Senate Spotlight. We invite you to join us next time around as we discuss important legislative issues and policy with the newsmakers and the newsbreakers of the California State Senate. From the state capitol here in Sacramento, I'm Brian Green. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Senate Spotlight.